The world of pharma regulations is constantly evolving, presenting new challenges and opportunities. In this ever-changing environment, continuous learning is key. Therefore, Express Pharma is launching Regulatory Watch, a series of masterclasses led by experts and thought leaders to empower you with the knowledge and insights needed to navigate the ever-changing regulatory landscape successfully. The first masterclass in this series is by Dr. Ajaz S Hussain on SMART QbD in ANDAs, enhancing assurance of generic drug quality. Dr. Ajaz Hussain is an independent advisor to several companies focusing on ensuring the validity of evidence for quality, safety, and efficacy amidst the chaos, uncertainty, and the revolution of Industry 4.0. His experience spans academia, the US FDA, and the pharma, tobacco, and IT industry. Formerly, he served as the president of the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Technology and Education (NIPTE), President Biotechnology (NAM), CSO at Wockhardt Limited, CSO, and VP, Next Generation Products Philip Morris International, Global Head Biopharmaceutical Development at Sandoz, Deputy Director Office of Pharmaceutical Science, CDER FDA, Associate Professor at the University of Cincinnati and Assistant Professor of Pharmacy at the Ohio Northern University.
Effectiveness of pharmaceuticals depend on assurance of quality. Smart quality by design is an approach to internal validation to give that assurance. This talk focuses on some aspects of abbreviated new drug applications and how one can move away from submission mindsets to an application of scientific method in pursuit of assurance of quality. The idea of smart quality by design in abbreviated new drug applications, not submission, builds on the observation of the editor of Express Pharma. Companies seeking ANDA's approval uncritically follow past practices and prior knowledge, is my interpretation of her observation. Few, if any, correct errors and innovate to improve past expertise and techniques. I begin by recalling an experience of a citizen petition against ANDAs, February 19, 2003. What it took to overcome and get the first generic approved. Here is Sandoz enoxaparin as an example. And what follows is the guidance. And I had the privilege to observe this from different vantage points from Sandoz as a consultant to industry and seeing the struggle of companies to even meet the requirements after a guidance has been established. I believe that ANDAs are a crucial stepping stone for India Pharma to maintain its leadership and innovation in claiming to be the pharmacy to the world. Pharmaceutical science underpins regulations, but it is pinned down by approvals, the mindset the approvals create. So it struggles to self-correct, and errors erode patient and public trust. Any sector claiming to be pharmacy to the world is rightly or wrongly blamed for these errors and erosion of trust. Smart quality by design is taking responsibility and finding a way to intuitively strengthen institutions to enhance assurance of generic drug quality, to be on top of ANDAs with a high IP index. In my way of thinking, IP index has a different meaning. It extends to intellectual prowess, but the power of intellectual arguments we can bring to the table. So in that sense, this is my citizen petition for Smart QbD. In the world of smart cities, smart factories, smart everything, there is a need for smart management and smart minds. This was the notion of my article in Express Pharma a few years ago on smart pharmaceuticals 2021 to 2030. I'm taking that notion of smart to mean smart self-monitoring, analysis and reporting technology, as in case of computer systems, but also smart monitoring of assumptions, research, and testing to verify our assumptions, as well as smart monitor attitude and resetting to be transformative as an individual, as a professional. To do all of this, to correct past errors, prevent mistakes, improve and innovate at every level of the hierarchy that makes up corporate systems, from front lines to boardrooms. Simply changing the word from submission to application shifts our mindset. What assumptions and attitude require transformation? That's the answer. Move away from submission mindset to application mindset. Pharmaceutical science underpins regulations, but is pinned down under the mindset of approvals. So it struggles to self correct, and errors erode patient and public trust, is the theme, the premise of my talk. So, in that sense, what are we assuming? We are assuming science is a self correcting process. It's not. Ignorance is brought about by assumptions. If we consider the system of ANDA approval, how is this system performing? Not very efficiently, about 50% efficiency. And that's the reason we, in 2019, published a paper called New Prior Knowledge, Pharmaceutical New Prior Knowledge, 21st Century Assurance of Therapeutic Equivalence. The notion of new and prior knowledge is oxymoronic, and we intended to be oxymoronic to make the point. The notion that science is self-correcting is incorrect in this context, is exemplified by taking into consideration the physicochemical failure modes we tend to ignore with the most sensitive of all the drugs that we call narrow therapeutic index drugs. And if we don't acknowledge such ignorance, we will keep correcting and coming back with recurring errors and mistakes. So the notion that science is self-correcting within the pharmaceutical context is an assumption that the time has passed. We need new prior knowledge to be able to prevent and a reoccurrence of errors and mistakes. Any new knowledge is potential intellectual property, but that's not the focus of my presentation today. Who takes the blame when errors recur? One who submits. It is smart to go beyond submission mindset to an application mindset, an application of the scientific method. Who takes the blame? One who submits. Here, take for example the case of metoprolol succinate extended release products which were failing dissolution tests and created a chaos in the mindset of patients in America, and went through investigations, and FDA concludes that the recalls were due to company's own test. But how were their test specifications established? Who forced those specifications onto those companies, and why did the companies submit to those specifications? Think about it. Again, having the privilege to have observed this debacle from many different perspectives, from within FDA, from being at Sandoz when Sandoz was struggling in 2006, and then in India in 2014. Why are we making the same mistakes again and again and again becomes a question. So these are real consequences that have devastating business impact as well as devastating impact on the patients. We have to stop doing this again and again. Again, as a consultant in India in 2017, helping a company answer a complete response letter, you see that trend of going back to the same old assumptions of how do you control a process. In 2014, FDA spokesperson says recalls were the result of company's own test. And in this application in 2017, where the complete response letter saying, now do the same test again for in-process test. The question really was at that point, how do you answer this and make sure that you have a commercially viable manufacturing process? And that takes effort to self-author and bring logical argumentations to show everyone involved in decision making what is the right decisions and what are the consequences of wrong decisions. That's how one has to write complete response letters, or even any regulatory application has to be written with that in mind. And we often do not do that. The point I'm trying to make here is simply this: recurring mistakes point to the immaturity of the system. We live and work in socio-technical system. Maturity of our systems depends or is reflected on our maturity. We all are part of the system. So if you look at news clips that are being fed to me by my AI bot, I picked up this a few hours yesterday actually. The year of substandard drugs, how 2023 saw India crack down on poisonous pharmaceuticals. Diclin glycol poisoning, what, 50 companies might be vulnerable for doing that mistake, was mind-boggling to me. Adulterated drugs to breakthrough cancer therapy. That's the paradox of India. Is on one hand we are dealing with the basic fundamentals, and then we are aiming for the sky, and we have to do both. How we do this correctly is the key here. The untold story is the generic versus brand generics in India is now playing out as it did, or perhaps it is playing out as it did in America a few years ago. That's the paradox that caught my attention. To help appreciate this paradox, I put this big picture together of news headlines of related topics. US generic drug market in chaos, 2017. Indian upstarts rise. Generic pill color changes may affect medication adherence. Now, much of the chaos was unpredictable supply of generic drugs because of breaches in assurance of data integrity of bad eye warning letters. Much of the big pharma in India was struggling with that. And yet, Indian upstarts were rising. That's the paradox. Fed up with drug companies, hospitals decided to start their own, and many are still progressing in that direction. Suffocating silence prevented us from questioning the rot. Continuous manufacturing has strong impact on drug quality. And the nine is all of us at different hierarchy. How do we utilize our intuition to improve our institutions is the question in my mind. What type of system are we operating in? A chaotic system, which a chaotic system is unpredictable beyond average because of extreme sensitivity to initial conditions. Initial conditions in pharma are us, our raw materials, and our applications or submissions. That's what we have to focus on. As we come to the end of 2023, it's time to reflect back. To be resilient, the steps are reflection, reframing, and responding differently than we did before. So let's reflect. If incorrect assumptions lie at the root of every failure, what are the big assumptions? From my point of view, the Office of Pharmaceutical Science was created at FDA to come out of the crisis which we call the generic drug scandal. Remember, the Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act, the tipping point for its enactment in 1938 was the tragedy of elixir of sulfanilamide. It was a formulation challenge, but yet the law put into place a new drug application. The word pharmaceutical hardly ever comes into the vocabulary. We actually don't approve a new drug, we approve a new pharmaceutical product, but we call our application a new drug application. We call our excipients inactive ingredients. So you can see the mindset of the law as written is actually telling us that we have been ignoring pharmaceutical science. So pharmaceutical science has followed the laws and regulation and has had to find a way to exert itself in our practices. So that was the reason where I had an opportunity to create a Vision 2020 with the PAT guidance, with ICHQ8, which becomes a quality by design, And that was the framework for pharmaceutical quality for the 21st century. And over the years, I had an opportunity to look at the progress or lack of progress in this effort from outside FDA as head of global development for Sandoz, as outside the sector as working for Philip Morris, and then also within India as advocate, and then as a consultant and advisor. So I have had opportunity to observe these challenges from many different vantage points. Vision 2020, I can see clearly now, was to be able to say quality and performance by design, continuous real-time assurance of quality, specifications based on mechanistic understanding of how formulation and process factors impact product performance, high efficiency and capacity utilization, real-time review and inspection from anywhere FDA is. That was the motivating factor in 2001. Returning to the pharma sector, serendipitously, I was not planning to come back, but I came back to pharma sector after leaving the sector. In 2014, I was asked by a trade magazine. The title of that article was "Confronting Illusions of Quality in India Generic Manufacturing." That was March 2014. There are many different points of view. There's an FDA point of view, says these are the issues with breaches in assurance of data integrity. There's a consultant view which says don't focus on India. This is a global phenomenon. And there's a corporate whistleblower perspective which focuses on strengthening the local enforcement. My point of view was empowering workers is the key to data integrity, assurance of data integrity. And to pursue that, I took a journey. I took a very focused journey, which I called Schrodinger's cat, and my journey from 2015 to 2020. And this journey has been documented on LinkedIn, and you can follow that journey of what I learned, when I learned, and what didn't I learn, and when should I have learned, and so forth. So the question then was, why did FDA revert to the 21st century, calling it 2.0? Why did it lost its original team approach? Was a question in my mind. In 2014-15, FDA was struggling, and it sort of went back to a reflective mode and to essentially come out with a white paper saying that we lack one quality voice. Product recalls and defects, unacceptably high occurrence of problems attributed to inherent defects in product and performance and process design, and so forth. So what happened? So FDA in this white paper calls it this is 2.0 version of 21st century initiative. What happened to the initiative 1.0? Why didn't they continue that? Was the question in my mind. A short answer, why didn't they do it, was to underestimate complexity of the task at hand. And if I go back and look at how Office of Generic Drug was progressing for implementing of quality by design, they had a very elaborate plan in consultation with the association, Generic Pharmaceutical Association, and so forth. And they claimed by 2013 they would have implemented a quality by design approach to ANDA submissions. Then what happened in 2015? Why did they go back to say, come back to say we lack one quality voice? In many aspects, underestimating complexity is the short answer. And in underestimating complexity, how we set our initial estimates or initial conditions is where the challenge is. So, for example, quality target product profile was simply a rehash of the compendial monograph, and that in and of itself poses many challenges. I won't have time to discuss all of that here with you. On my YouTube, I have a more detailed presentation called 360 degree of a view of quality by design, which I did for USP for a USP conference in 2017. I will refer you to that. But the point I want to make here is our initial conditions were set incorrectly because of wrong assumptions. And especially, for example, in 2010, FDA had commissioned McKinsey and Company to do a assessment of state of QBD implementation, and that data was available to FDA, and FDA somehow missed it. The McKinsey study found that research and development and regulatory affairs are incentivized for file first, and generics are all about file first and figure it out later. There's a huge amount of reviewer inconsistency, so quality by design is literally not possible in this mode of mindset. So, in that sense, I think it takes work to make common sense of our initial conditions. Our compartmentalized functions focus on local objectives cascaded down from a system output aiming at profit and productivity, and not satisfaction of professionals, practitioners, and patients. And I think this is where we have to reset our initial conditions. And so that is a challenge. It is a assumption hidden in plain sight, which needs verification. The key learning of my journey to 2020 was that experience matters more. I should have realized that we had moved into experience economy at the beginning of 21st century. But like everybody else, experience was something we count in years, not the feeling aspect. Experience means to feel, and how we feel influences how we think and act was an the need to appreciate that sequence came to me when I was working on smoking behavior in the tobacco sector. So I had missed out on the need for integrity of experience. And my learning from the journey has been is our integrity of experience matters as much, matters more, and that is the basis of integrity of data, information, knowledge, and that leads to wisdom is the key learning that I come up from this journey. And you'll have to review some of my posts on LinkedIn to so what is my alcoa for integrity of my experience. I think is something I want to leave with you as sort of your research to do. So that really is what smart management and minds need to be now, going forward towards 2030. Uh, Let us self monitor our attitude and reset those to be transformative. As a system, management system, let's self monitor at every level our assumptions, research and test our assumption to verify their validity. And clearly, we can use technology as the aid to self-monitor, analyze, and report technology. That is going to happen. And unfortunately, if you're not prepared, the technology, artificial intelligence, is going to be more intelligent than humans very soon. And so the role of humans and role of humanity becomes a question, which in of itself is a whole set of discussions, which obviously is out of the scope of this discussion. So let's, at least for ourselves, focus on uh, self monitoring our assumptions, researching and testing our assumptions so that we can correct past errors, prevent mistakes, improve, and innovate at every level of the hierarchy that makes the system from front lines to board of directors. Assumptions are our long learned automatic responses, and attitude is our habitual way of responding to assumptions we hold. What assumptions do we need to research and test? How about we specify quality target product profile to ensure we're not trapped in the 2 to 3 sigma trap? What habits do we need to reset to bring about transformation? A product and performance lifecycle approach to take a continuous development stance, for instance. You will find on my LinkedIn page and elsewhere a case example of breaking the 2 to 3 sigma barrier, a biopharm case example. The 2 to 3 sigma barrier keeps us in the corrective action mode, and often correcting common cause sources of common cause variations, which have no real correction because we keep repeating those errors again and again. And in our frustration of root cause unknown, retrain, go through that cycle again and again. When our knowledge pyramid topples, is a matter of the next devastating FDA inspection. So I think, why do we get trapped in this, I think, is a question I want to pose to you, and remind you that chaos is a system which is unpredictable beyond average because of extreme sensitivity to initial conditions. And the initial conditions, we are part of the initial conditions, and we need to be the change we want to see in the world. That's the general wisdom that we have received from our traditions. And therefore, I think I want you to think about from that perspective. Incorrect assumptions lie at the root of every failure. Have the courage to test your assumptions. A transformative attitude is the courage to question, research, and test accepted assumptions, and take action to correct, prevent, and improve. Now that we are at the end of a year, how, for instance, let's begin the transformation in how we conduct our annual product review and annual performance review. How do we connect the two together, integrate that together to set up the next year's objectives in a way that continuous improvement and continuous professional development are part of your next year's objective? Let India's journey towards becoming one of the world's largest economies be unhindered by submissions in pharma sector. Don't submit, apply scientific method is the message here. SMART QbD in A, abbreviated new drug applications, not submissions, can be and should be the self-assurance underpinning the assurance of quality any pharmacy to the world delivers. By design means by conscious intent. Smart QBD can be your plan. Allow me to conclude this short presentation with the following. We know quality is not a quantity that can be tested in a laboratory. So, can we, as a New Year's resolution starting in 2024, begin to call our QC labs quantity control laboratories as they are? Thank you for listening, and I wish you a very happy and prosperous new year, and wish you all the success. And your success is what gives the world assurance of quality. Thank you.